Well, Eugene, it's a bit of a hive of activity in City Kickboxing as always. I guess just first of all, there's been lots of rumours online about who is and isn't in fight camp. Can you tell us who has a fight booked? Not necessarily when and who, just who's actually booked.
I can tell you. I can't tell you the exact details, but everybody's booked. Every single UFC fighter I've booked. I think there's 7 of them, including Alex, and they're all booked. So we all have fights in this first quarter of the year. They'll be announced soon. I expect. Yeah.
Sweet. And the ones we do know, obviously Dan Hooker fights this weekend.
Yeah.
How do you feel about his preparation going into this fight? Obviously, the last time you weren't in his corner, he got stopped by Edson Barbosa, and a lot of people have been bringing that up this week. How do you feel watching Dan this week from abroad?
Yeah, I mean that. Although that's true, that has nothing to do with anything. I also was in his corner versus Dustin, and we lost that fight. The preparation has been excellent. Dan got onto the fight really early, especially relative to the Dustin one, which was a little bit short notice for us. We managed to get this one early, and Dan was in reasonable nick before that, so we really got on top of this one early. We got a strategy down early as far as like where he is like mentally, and where he is like where that game plan is consciously and subconsciously. I'm pretty happy with it. So yeah, the corner, like I said, you just simply remove the influence of the corner. Although it would be great to be there, you just, he can make it whatever corner he wants. It's up to him. He can make it not a factor.
Right.
And if he stays disciplined, he stays on a game plan, he remembers everything that he's trained for, then all he's going to need is like your basic corner advice. Despite which, he's got a great cornerman and a man that I trust fully to see the things that Dan needs to do in the spur of the moment, George Hickman. So I'm quite confident. Mm-hmm. All the coaches are. Yeah.
Do you like the matchup against Michael Chandler?
Yeah, I mean, I like the matchup. I like that we've spent quite a few years now, me and Tristram and Mike and Andre, is getting Dan to have like a greater appreciation of some of his physical attributes, which he early in his career he didn't. I'm not sure if he necessarily didn't respect those attributes, but perhaps he didn't know how to tweak some of them and use them in the right capacity. And we think we've done a lot of work on that. And ultimately, all that work leads to this fight, where you're fighting a guy where all that work we've done can really come to fruition if he puts everything together on the night. So that's what we're hoping for.
For this card, there's been a lot of talk about whether it's a sort of lottery or a tournament to see who gets Conor next, who gets Khabib. Of those two, for Dan, which would you rather see after this fight, provided he gets past Michael Chandler?
I'm going to lean towards Conor, because that's the bigger fight. I think that's a style that we like, but I'm happy with either or. Like, the goal is to get the title, so it doesn't matter who's got it. You're going to end up fighting them. So regardless of who it is, it doesn't matter. Conor's obviously, there's things you can take advantage of Conor. There's things you can take advantage of with Khabib, but Khabib's never been beaten, so he's a much harder prospect to deal with. He also, that style is a bit harder to deal with. So if there's many reasons why I would favour the Conor fight, but yeah, I mean, Dan's there. You can't give that fight to Chandler. That has to be Dan's fight. In saying that, he was the backup, so they were going to give it to him. But to give it to a guy who's never had a single fight in the UFC, purely on credentials outside of the UFC, when the other guy's number 5, your common sense would tell you that fight, the number 1 person in line for that fight is Dan, if it's between Dan and Chandler. So I would hope if there's some sort of emergency and someone has to jump in, that Dan's the first choice.
Moving on to titles, obviously you got a big opportunity for Israel coming up in a couple of months' time. Is there any difference to how you prepare for that step up to light heavyweight?
That's a great question, and there is no real difference. Like we have decided that we're not going to put on, any amount of weight. We're going to just walk in on a comfortable weight for us. It'll be under the light heavyweight limit for sure. So, I mean, we're doing that for several reasons. That we really want this to be a showcase of Israel's skill, not Israel's physicality. And we also, shortly after that, we have to go back down to middleweight and not hold up that division and see what that messes, who's kind of put themselves in that number one spot for us to do a quick turnaround and jump back into a middleweight fight. So we can't be putting on 20 or 30 kilos, can we? Yeah.
Just on that, because Israel's moving up and there's been all that beef with John Jones in the past couple of years, everyone's sort of thinking Israel's done in middleweight. If he wins this title, he looks for the Jones fight, either at light heavyweight or heavyweight. Yeah. Middleweight's still very much on the cards?
Yeah, I mean, I think Israel's been pretty clear, and as far as I know, he's a man of his word. He wants to be one of the greatest middleweights to ever hold that belt. And to do that, you have to stay in the middleweight division, and you have to keep defending that belt. So, although I can't predict the future, and I don't exactly know what exactly he's going to do and what me and the coaches and the management are gonna do, to me it seems more likely if he had to relinquish a bout, it's probably going to be the heavier bout. But you just never know. That's a bridge we're just going to cross when it comes.
And Jan Blachowicz, he's a very strong puncher. A lot of people counted him out going into the fight against Dominic Reyes, and he proved a lot of people wrong. Just how do you approach a guy like this?
Yeah, I mean, much stronger than us, much more physical than us. There's some really dangerous attributes that he has, but I mean, we've always put skill as the number one priority, and we've always put that on a pedestal and said, look, if you're skillful enough, you can be better than someone who's more athletic than you. You can be better than someone that's stronger than you. You can be better than someone that's more flexible than you, that has better endurance. So ultimately, we're just backing Israel's skill and a really tight strategic plan, and that's what we're backing, as opposed to a lot of other attributes.
How many times this year do you plan to have Israel fight, or is there a plan at this point?
4.
4?
4.
That's a lot of fights, especially in this climate.
4 is a lot of fights in this climate, but last year did we get 2 off? I think we only did 2, maybe. To be fair, it's been slow. You're talking about a guy who fought. What was it?
Hold up.
Where were we?
How many times do you want Israel fighting this year?
Yeah, I mean, we've made a pretty clear goal that 4 minimum of 4. Last year was a pretty inactive year, only having 2, COVID and all the rest of it. And just the last few years have been not as active as I would like for me. And it's due to a whole lot of factors. There's other influences and stuff, and Israel's there's other stuff for Israel to do that he enjoys doing. But ultimately, if this is the thing that you love above all things, let's do it a little bit more often. And so I think 4 is a reasonable number throughout a year. I would like to see more. I would like to see 5, but realistically, you set our goals on 4, and I think we can achieve that.
Mm-hmm. Looking at the middleweight division, who would you like to see next?
For me, I would like to see Darren Till. I think I would enjoy that fight. I think I would enjoy studying that fight. I think that fight would get me really enthusiastic. But he keeps bloody losing. So yeah, I think Israel wants that fight as well. But I mean, I guess Darren has to do what he needs to do to put himself in a position to get that fight. But obviously, we're good on that fight. We just need the other party to come through. Yeah.
And with Brad, he was rumoured to be fighting Gregor Gillespie next. I know he was in conversations with getting his contract extended. Has he got that new contract now? Or is it still in negotiations?
Well, that's all still in the works. I can't say who the opponent is exactly, but yeah, it's all still in the works. I mean, Brad did a fantastic job with his first tenure, his first contract, and now it's up to he has a fantastic management team, and they'll put him in the right position to get to like be very influential in that division very quickly. Because as you know, Brad already came into the UFC with a massive combat sports background already. He doesn't have to be mucking around trying to work his way up. We proved last year that we are a top echelon fighter, so it's up to us to move him along as fast as we can.
With Carlos, a lot of people got excited when they saw him do what he did in the Contender Series. Just how do you approach guiding him into his first UFC fight?
Yeah, I mean, a little bit differently to someone like Brad or an Israel or a Dan. Like Carlos perhaps is taking a little bit of a path that's a little bit more common in the UFC. He's doing a lot of. He's going to do a substantial amount of learning on the job. So I need the right opponents. I need him to see certain looks. I need him to experience certain things. And so his path will be a little bit slower than some of those more experienced guys, just because he had a whole lot less MMA experience. So yeah, I mean it's not that I'm going to look after him, but we're gonna try and influence as best we can the right opponents, so he sees as many different variables as he can. So by the time he gets to that upper echelon, he's seeing the taller guy, the grappler, the wrestler. Yeah, so it's just like a little bit of learning on the job and just gaining the right experience, so that when we do make that step up, he's more than capable and more than ready.
How beneficial was it for Carlos in particular? Obviously, they would have liked to come home earlier, but getting to spend that time that they did with Andre over at Atos in San Diego.
Yeah, look, any time you get to spend a significant amount of time, 4 to 5 weeks with one of the best jiu-jitsu teams in the world, you're gonna grow and you're gonna learn a whole lot. And Carlos definitely came home with a newfound appreciation for high-level jiu-jitsu, high-level competition jiu-jitsu, and newfound respect for details, like some of the smallest details and like the smallest changes to a position can make exponential difference on the outcome of that position. So newfound appreciation for that, and yeah, newfound respect for that particular part of the sport.
That's good. And Kai obviously just did a handful of rounds after training, which is always good to see. What sort of fire was lit in him watching the Figueiredo Moreno fight, knowing that he pushed Moreno just as hard?
Kai is, and just the flyweight division is so stacked. Like you number 10 can be the champion. Number 9, like they're all such a high level, and they're all separated by nothing. They're nothing. It's like it's similar to like the top. It'd be like the top 10 marathon runners in the world. They're like separated by this minuscule amount of time. It's just same as those top 10, top 15 guys in the flyweight division. Kai knows that he just needs to put a couple of influential wins together, and he can be right there, and he knows he can like be potentially troubling for that champion with his particular style. So yeah, and he's going to take a step towards that title like very soon.
How's Shane bounced back from that that KO loss that he suffered last time out?
Yeah, I mean, Shane understands Shane. I don't think that's the first time Shane's ever been stopped by KO. Neurologically, he's like bounced back. Mentally, he seems to be in a good place. He's got a fight booked. Yeah, I mean, at the end of the day, like you take the lessons away from that fight, and there were some like lessons to do with the actual fight and the positions and the punch and where you put your hand and all of that stuff. But I think ultimately what Shane learned from that fight is stuff to do with the mentality surrounding the fight, stuff to do with the mentality around a last-minute opponent change, things not being perfect, training for a person and getting another person. You have to learn in this sport, even at that level, to ignore all that. You don't have an opponent. You're facing yourself ultimately. It doesn't matter who the opponent is. And it was a whole lot of lessons around the fight, not necessarily in the fight, that he's going to take away from that last loss.
Sweet. And you got a lot of the boys around here now. Their partners are expecting. Have you had to put any word on saying we're not cancelling fights?
Yeah.
Or is it a case of you might have to at some point?
No, we're not cancelling any fights. Yeah, look, this generation of babies coming through is going to be known as the COVID generation, I'm sure. But I don't just have like the likes of Kai and Brad and Ben and Shane who had a baby not long ago. There's a whole lot of other guys that are having babies, obviously a result of being locked in their house for a long time. But yeah, it's great. Like it really changes. Guys like Brad and guys like Kai, I'm looking forward to seeing the change in their mentality regarding their fight career, because when you have another life that you're responsible for and this is your job, yeah, definitely I see a switch being flicked, and they definitely take things a little bit more seriously, which is like fantastic because they already take things very seriously.
Just lastly, on UFC side of things, we'll get to Junior Far as well. How do you feel about another few months traveling?
Like after Junior?
Yeah, after Junior.
Yeah. I mean, look, it's looking like I'm away all of March, maybe, and then what I'm trying to do is get a voucher as soon as I can. After the last fight I got after the last fight, which I believe is going to be Alex's fight, I'm hunting hard for a voucher. So if anybody has a spare voucher and there's some sort of secret way to pass it on to someone else, I'm looking for just after the end of March. But yeah, I'm still looking for a voucher. That'll influence how much traveling I'm doing, because if I get stuck overseas for multiple weeks, then it's going to be hard for me to stay over there. I might have to come back straight after Israel's fight. So it's all dependent on this wonderful voucher system that the New Zealand government and all their wisdom doing a great job, seriously. Yeah, it's just dependent on whether I get a voucher.
Junior Far, how's he bounced back from surgery? Is he looking good?
Yeah, Junior's looking really good. This is a very different training camp where we're doing a lot more monitoring of his health, obviously, and we're being a lot more periodic with the way that we introduce the different factors of his training. So we're not like lumping everything on top of him. We're being quite strategic when we're introducing more rounds, when we're introducing particular type of cardio that we're doing, particular different exercises. We're just making sure that we don't overload a system and end up in a detrimental situation like we did before. So we've got some great people that we're working with, and it's just constant monitoring. And to be honest, the way that we're running that camp is been quite influential. I'm starting to think that Although we're already stringent with the way that we monitor the guy's health, we can do even better. And I'm learning that through this camp with Junior and keeping an eye on things in regard to him.
Was part of the issue because of the training load, or what sort of brought that on?
No, it wasn't because of the training load. It was definitely because of this medical condition. But reintroducing the training load can be a problem if we don't do it, in the right manner. So we can't flood him too early. He's actually still recovering. By the time the fight comes, he'll be fully recovered and he'll be fully fit. But we just can't overload his system too early when it's still not 100%. It will be 100% by the time the fight comes, and that's when we want everything to come together. Yeah, so it's quite tricky.
Knowing how good he looked leading into the fight the first time around, is he any different to how he looks now? Obviously, I assume he would have lost a little bit in recovering from surgery.
He's coming close to the form that he was in before all this happened, and we've still got quite a few weeks left. So I'm pretty confident that we'll see that out of this delay, we should be able to get a little bit more out of Junior than we did last time. Just a little bit more sharpness, a little bit more fitness, a little bit more power, just a little bit, just a few more tweaks we'll be able to get out of him as opposed to last time, which is what you hope to get out of a fight being delayed. You're hoping you can take advantage of that delay.
I guess talking about taking advantage, you obviously don't want to see your fighter going in under surgery, but is it more beneficial for you now having the likes of Carlos back in the gym for sparring with Junior?
That is one of the benefits. Israel's also doing some rounds with you, but Carlos in particular has been really good sparring for Junior. Carlos, I believe, has given Junior one of the. I mean, obviously he's not Joseph Parker, but he's given Junior one of the looks that I feel is going to be very valuable for the fight. So I think the sparring between Carlos and Junior is going to end up being, in particular, is going to end up being very valuable. It also just happens to be quite helpful for Carlos, who's fighting someone around the same height as Junior, without saying who that is. Yeah.
That doesn't give away too much. Lots of people are that height in that division. Just on Junior, how was his mentality coming back? How were his spirits having to delay the fight?
Yeah, I mean, he's Junior's always a happy guy. He's always quietly happy. He's not the loudest guy in the room, but he's always very happy and very warm. I think the hardest thing for Junior at the moment is just understanding that it's a progression to where he's got to go, and it's not quite like the other camps where we're hitting him full steam from start to finish and just watching him improve. It's the slow introduction of more and more volume until we get to our final destination. Of course, Junior just wants to go. But he just has to trust the process. That's probably the hardest thing for him that he's dealing with at the moment.
So, and just finally, I understand they were trying to get Hemi on the card in December. Is that still very much in play?
I mean, I can't say whether he's on the card, but we're definitely trying our hardest to get him on the card. So, well, I would say that there's a good chance he'll be on the card, but I can't confirm that, of course. You have to talk to my friend Mr. Higgins in regard to that.
Alrighty.